Tell me a bit about how you started into cycling and how, like you said that you tried different sports before, and then cycling is like the first one that you really had like passion and a love for.
Yeah, it's a unusual story, I guess. Like I never thought I was going to be a sports person. That wasn't on the agenda for me at all. Like growing up, I like I played sports. I did some swimming. I was on like the hockey team in school, but I think I was on like I was the B squad and maybe a sub for the A. Like I was never like an all star like
Yeah.
kid playing sport. I was okay. And then probably when I was around, oh, I'd say just second year in school, I just fell out of all sports. I lost interest. I mean, I was the one who'd mitch off from from PE class. Most people like PE class, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't want to go. Um, so I'd like skip PE classes. And around the same time, maybe 14 or 15, I would have started like smoking cigarettes with my friends, starting to drink here and there. So yeah, definitely, sport was not on my agenda at all, and that continued until. I mean, I didn't start cycling a bike until my dad basically was he was going to get rid of his old bike, and he suggested, oh, why don't you just you can cycle into college and work. I'm going that way anyway, why don't you cycle with me? And like I had been getting the bus and the train, and it was proving to be like I hate public transport. Like it's so stressful, it's a nightmare, and it's actually quite expensive. So I was like, sure, I'll try the bike. And that was 2015, I think. And that was the start of it, really. I was like instantly addicted to it.
Okay.
I started cycling like almost every day into town and back. That was like 10k 9-10k each way. And then the following year I was encouraged to join a cycling club. So I joined Orwell Wheelers in Dundrum, and almost instantly they started encouraging me to, I think maybe especially because I was a woman, it's a very male dominated sport, cycling. So I think when they get new like female members, everyone's very kind of encouraging, and they want you to like keep trying and keep getting better. So like they straight away were like, you should try racing. And I was like, yeah, I should try racing. And so I did, and I wasn't very good at it. The first year I don't know why I threw myself into the deep end and did like open road races in Ireland, like
Okay.
against like people who were racing nationals and stuff. So yeah, I was getting dropped and finishing like 20 minutes behind everyone else. But for some reason, I wanted to keep going back and do it again and again. And then I got a coach at the end of that year and trained over the winter. And it was like the following year, the start of 2017, that I started getting kind of decent results on the road. And it was the same time that Cycling Ireland were doing a talent transfer.
Okay.
So I saw the advertisement on Cycling Ireland. I think it said something like, could you be a future Olympian? And I was like, sure, why not? I'll apply. I didn't think anything would come of that, but I sent them an email and said, listen, I've just started cycling and I'm really into it, and can I get a test? So basically they're bringing a bunch of people in from different sports to get tested.
Okay.
It was like a 3-minute power test and sprint. So yeah, they accepted me for that application, and then that basically opened all the doors for me to go through. I got through that process and like started doing the camps abroad with 8 of the final people who were selected, and then it narrowed down to like 4 riders, and I ended up racing my first World Cup at the end of 2017 for Team
Wow.
Brazil. So yeah, it was kind of it was a bit of a whirlwind, I suppose. And then obviously that all led to yeah, my improvements on the track, and I kind of found my niche in track cycling, and now I've switched from the original discipline I was in, which was team pursuit, and I've been trying to work on sprint, the pure sprint discipline.
It's obviously been like a huge, journey for you, like from the start, and like obviously the age that you came to the sport at is not what people would consider, the time that you're going to find a sport. And I think it's great to be able to share that with people and kind of show people that there are sports there for people to join later and have huge success. And like obviously you were born for it because you've done so the extra year, I'm sure it will like give you like more experience, and the year will give you, I'd say, an edge as well, because like I'm sure you're racing against people that have been cycling for years,
yeah.
And you're obviously going to get like your jump in a year is going to be completely different to somebody that's been cycling for 10 or 15 years. Like
that, I mean, in a way it's almost like a blessing in disguise for me, because when you're traveling to races and you're doing races, a lot of the time you don't have much time to actually train, and you're you're trying to be medium tapered for a race so that you're not tired. But yeah, as you said, like it's kind of like newbie gains. Like I'm progressing in the gym probably at a faster rate than someone who's been doing the gym for 10 years.
Yeah.
So that for me, hopefully, we don't know. I'm really enjoying all the training, but obviously I need to get on a track to really make sure that it's like the work that I'm doing is applicable to the race itself, and I'm going to go faster. But I don't know yet. It's making me nervous. But yeah, no, everyone's saying trust the process, do the gym, do your strength work at home, do your bike on the indoor turbo or whatever. You can get some work done out on the road as well. But that hopefully then when I do get back on the track and I do a race, that I will be hopefully faster. We'll see.
So were your family, like you said, your dad encouraged you to get into cycling? We've seen all the bikes that are at the house.
Yeah.
Were your family actually into cycling before, or has everybody kind of, jumped in, feet first now?
My dad was, I think he was on a bike maybe, he's been cycling for about 10 years. But like he was never like, he wasn't a professional cyclist or anything like that. But he did the vets racing. So that's kind of, I'm not sure I think it's over 40s racing in Ireland. So he does that, and he started doing that maybe 10 years ago, cycling in and out of work. And my mum started cycling as well. I think she was cycling just before me as well. But the two of them do like a lot of sportives together, like like long cycles together, charity cycles. And they've done like the Camino. They flew to there and did like cycle the Camino together. So that kind of stuff. So yeah, like they're active. They play tennis. They're active enough. And my brother just commutes. He prefers running and the gym, but he's not a big cycle head.
So how did you find going into racing? Like obviously you have either like a fearlessness or like this, very courageous in throwing yourself in the first year. Like,
that's funny you should ask that, because like I get so nervous. I think that's honestly one of my biggest problems, is that I would get so nervous before races that I couldn't concentrate on what I was supposed to be doing. So that's probably been one of my biggest challenges, actually, is trying to come up with like mental strategies to deal with my pre-race anxieties. Maybe early on when I went to start racing, because there wasn't any pressure. It was just kind of me challenging myself, I guess, that I wouldn't have found it too stressful. Like I like it to be a little bit stressful though, because then I don't know, it shows that you kind of care and you want to do well. But then I guess when it got to like international level stuff, and like I was racing as part of a team, and there's a lot of pressure there and you don't want to make a mistake. There's definitely fear involved. I don't think anyone steps up on the start line, and I mean maybe one of my teammates, but she's she's amazing. She just like loves racing and doesn't get nervous. Yeah, I think that's all part of the game, and for sure this whole journey has helped me like learn a lot about myself and how I deal with stress and how I deal with my own like anxieties. So yeah, it's been empowering, I think, to kind of force yourself into scary situations, things that make you feel uncomfortable, and like overcoming them. Because I've been very scared many times. Like a perfect example would have been like I crashed at one of the first camps, broke my collarbone, and 5 weeks later we had to get on an actual velodrome for the first time. I have never been so scared in my entire life, because like first of all I'm afraid, okay, what if I fall again, and then secondly I've never been on one of these like 40-degree banking tracks before, so I remember my mouth was just like so dry. But again, I just kind of I would never say I'm fearless, because I was scared. I just kind of forced myself to do it. I don't know. I don't know how I can explain that any better, but yeah, it's kind of just forcing yourself to do it and knowing that you should be okay. Like Team Pursuit is like, people watch that race and think it's just 4 people riding around the circle and going fast, but there's like so much going on with each rider, and if one person makes a mistake, everybody knows about it, and it can affect the outcome of the entire race. I think out of all of the track races, I think if you asked any track rider if they've done Team Pursuit, they'll all agree that Team Pursuit is one of the most stressful races. And in saying that though, it's like one of probably the most satisfying as well, because when it goes well, you're like, wow, all the work's been worthwhile. We nailed it. Maybe we made a small mistake here or something we can tweak next time, but like when it all comes together, it's like, yes.
Also, you're pulling for other people as well, and and like you're saying, it's totally different if it's you versus like playing for a team, or like you're contributing to a team effort. Like it's, if you let yourself down, it's one thing, but like the impact of feeling like you've let 1, 2, 3 other people down, it's just like
yeah. I think like for me, like because I didn't have that kind of strong background in sport, that was something that I had to learn quickly as well, was being like, okay, not that I hadn't had experience working in a team, of course I had, but it's a different level when you see how much commitment and work goes into doing your part, and everyone else has done the same amount of work, if not like more, that there's that added level of pressure to be like, they put in so much work as well. If I make a mistake, all their work goes out the window as well. So yeah, it's fun.
Talk to us about like the tactics in the velodrome, and like for people that are like very much outside the cycling community, or even people that are just road cycling, like it's a completely different sport, like, and people don't know a whole lot about it in Ireland. So talk to, like, kind of give us a bit of an overview on it.
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, there's a ton of different events, and you've got your endurance events and your sprint events. So like my experience in endurance would have been like 90% I raced Team Pursuit, which is essentially, it's a 4-kilometer race with 4 riders, and you'd be racing another team who are on the other side of the track. Generally speaking, it's that not that there's no tactics involved, but you have a plan already when you go in. You have a schedule that you have to follow. So like each rider has a number of turns that they have to do on the front. So again, I think most cyclists would know that a rider on the front is doing the most work, or they're breaking the wind, they're doing the most power, and everybody else behind them is getting a recovery. In a way, you're never getting a recovery in Team Pursuit because you're going so fast. But yeah, so it's a case of my role in the Team Pursuit. I was always rider 1, so I got everybody up to speed. You get back in the line and you do another turn, so everybody rotates until the end of the race. But yeah, like I think with Team Pursuit anyway, going into it, you have a fair idea of like what times the other countries can do anyway. So it's we would always have known, okay, well, this team is going to be a similar time to us, so we need to do our best performance to beat them. Or then you might be up against Australia, and Australia is like 8 seconds faster. So it's just like, okay, we know they're going to overtake us in the last kilometer, but we just have to like be prepared for that. So, but then for other events, like I raced the scratch race at the European Games. That's basically just, it's like a really short road race, I guess, flat road race, or maybe like a crit. So there'd be a bunch of like, I think 24 riders. And yeah, first person over the line, that kind of thing. There's crazy things like Madison. I don't do the Madison. I don't know if you've ever seen the Madison. It's basically like it's like a relay race. So there's 2 people on a team. And there's, again, I don't know how many teams on the track at one time, but you swing your partner in every time you come back around. So there's a bunch that are racing, and then there's a bunch of the partners who are just riding slow. It's very hard to explain. So I've moved away from endurance into sprint now. So you've got pure sprint, and then you've got like the sprint event, and then you've got the Keirin, and then like time trial events. So sprint is basically one-on-one, first person over the line. It's very it's like a cat and mouse race. Yeah. So each rider is watching the other rider. There's 3 laps till the finish line, so you don't want to go full gas from the start. You're watching your opponent to see what they're going to do. Yeah, so it's fun. Generally speaking, especially in the women's race, it's like so you need to do a 200-meter time trial before you qualify to do the sprint, and you'll know by the qualifier times kind of where you sit. So like if I did an 11:4 and I'm racing against someone who did a 10:5, I'm not going to beat them no matter how tactical I am. So yeah, it's I think with maybe in the men's sprint, it's a lot of them have very, very similar times. So there's a lot more tactics involved. But again, in saying that, there are tactics that can be employed. You could employ some tactics to try and beat someone who's like 4/10 faster than you, but yeah, it'd be difficult.
Yeah. What kind of speeds do you guys end up hitting?
200 for the women's would be like, well, for the really fast ones, they'd be going over 65 kilometers an hour. I think the men are over 70 kilometers an hour. Yeah.
I think to put into perspective for people, like, obviously people sit in cars and know how fast it is in a car, but to visualize yourself on a bike going that fast, I think just would like scare people so much.
Yeah, it's the fastest probably I would go. Yeah, like the fastest I've felt is when I've been like either behind so sometimes we do training behind a motorbike on the track, so the motorbike will basically build you up to like full speed. It feels crazy because you're moving so fast. Like obviously there's a part of you that's like, wow, if like I have a puncture now, that's not going to end well for anyone.
Yeah.
But again, you put those things out of your mind. Obviously it's definitely a dangerous sport. But it's thrilling. It's fun to experience those kind of speeds. So I enjoy it anyway.
Did you find you had a lot to learn on the run, obviously coming into it, a little bit later, and like, but having success like pretty quickly?
Even just like silly things like technical things and bike skills, like, there's girls there that have been riding since they were juniors, and they just know how to ride a bike. I don't know how to explain that any better. I remember at my first sprint race, I did a decent time for my first 200, but I remember one of the GB coaches said to me afterwards, he's like, I don't know if you want to hear this, and I was like, no, go on please. And he's like, like, you obviously have a lot of power, but you need to learn how to ride a bike. So it's kind of like he could see that, like, okay, she's fast, but she looks like she's fighting with the bike, like it's things like that that don't come naturally to me because I've not been doing this for very long. So yeah, it's kind of trying to be at one with the bike, and like the bike's an extension of your body. That's not like I'm like fighting a wild horse. It's like that kind of thing. So yeah, things like that will make me feel like I'm a little bit behind everyone else, and all I can do is try and play catch up, get as much experience as I can. I'm taking this time to like learn bike handling skills and stuff in my spare time, but yeah, it was a steep learning curve for sure.
The room for improvement for you is just so much greater than people that have been in the game longer, and I think to be at the level that you're at now, well, you know, if they're only going to, you know, get better by 1% this year, like I can get better by 5% this year. Like obviously, you know, you're guessing at the percentages and stuff, but like there's just so much room, and especially people that have been cycling, obviously there's like a natural, you know, at oneness with the bike for being on a bike for a very long time, and like as kids, and if like say if you watch people that have skied from the time that they were 4 years old versus someone that takes up skiing even when they're 12, like there is like, or versus then an adult taking it up, it's totally different. But your like commitment to a sport as an adult, I think, is different than when you're participating in something as a child and then you just kind of end up in the like international, you know, sphere because you were talented. But versus like you make a decision as an adult that you're either going to participate in the sport or you're not. So like, your work ethic and drive and discipline is going to be totally different than somebody that was doing this when they were 14, because they probably just went to cycling because that's where their parents put them, and
it's true.
Work ethic, you know, would be a different kind of level, because you know, you understand what you can do if you're not cycling and you have other, you know, responsibilities or commitments or whatever. Like it's a conscious decision to put the commitment into that, where as a kid you just kind of go about your business,
go along with the flow.
Exactly. Yeah, it's totally different. But
and people do ask me like, oh, do you regret not starting earlier? Like, imagine where you could be if you started earlier. And I'm like, if I started cycling when I was a teenager, like I probably would have given up after a few years and then not had any interest to go back to it. So I think I'm happy enough that I didn't discover this until after.
But the other thing is, like, and with particularly your girls, like, and that's like we'll kind of touch on the women and girls stuff as well. But like with girls, there's just you know, you participate in sport for a while, like you're kind of saying, like go and do what your parents put you into, and then leave. And especially at the age of like 12, 13, 14, like girls kind of, you know, lose interest in sport, or if it's not then, it's after leaving cert or after college or something. But like, you know, it's like there's so much burnout in different sports, or just kind of loss of interest. So yeah, like coming into something as an adult, or you know, even someone in their late teens, they don't lose the love for it, and you're interested in improving. And no, I think it's like I think there's some sports you can do very well at when you come and start as an adult, and it's like great to like for you to be like such a role model for people to kind of see that, you know, the potential is there to start a new sport.
I mean, I don't know a whole lot about, say, like athletics, but I know kind of if for you to be competitive, you need to have started quite young. You need to be quite young to be fast, I guess. For some reason, that's not applicable in cycling. Like there's the world champions are in their 40s in the women's field. Like it seems to be, I don't know, the ability to apply a lot of power on a bike, potentially maybe because it's non-impact. It doesn't seem to, age doesn't seem to be a huge factor in it. It can, like, there are people who are on the on the podium that are a huge age range. Like maybe they are 18, 19, or they're 40, you know, racing against each other. So it's great. That it means that, you know, you don't have to look at your age as a limiting factor.
It's really positive to hear that you were encouraged as a woman in sport, and that support was there for you.
Yeah, like definitely within the cycling clubs, like there is a great sense of community in all clubs, I think. So but Orwell Wheelers was great. I think they have one of the biggest female memberships of all the cycling clubs in Dublin, and that might not be true anymore, but it was when I joined. But yeah, instantly they were trying to get me to race. Like they kind of pride themselves on putting in a women's team and stuff into, like, say, Rostamon and that. So yeah, Orla Hendren is a big part of it. She would have encouraged me to start my first road races. I only really became aware that my age, I might have been on the older side for the sport, when people asked me about it, because when I started I didn't think, I guess because I went into it not thinking that this was gonna, like, anything was gonna come of it. I just wanted to try something new, and I was having fun. So I never thought about my age when I went into it. But yeah, and I never really thought about the fact that, yeah, I was a woman going into cycling. Maybe that's because my dad never kind of bat an eyelid about it. He was like, yeah, come on, we'll join this club, we'll do this, we'll that. And even though I might have been the only woman in the group, I don't know, it could have been intimidating for other people, but I don't know, I didn't find it that intimidating to be riding with a bunch of men. But I see how it can be, and I think that's why a lot of women maybe steer clear of cycling as a sport in general, because it does seem like it's very male dominated. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that is, but
so with other sports, you obviously didn't have an interest in, or like the love to continue participating in them. And do you like tune into more sports now that you're kind of in the, sports game?
Like, if I am ever tuning into sports or watching sports, it's either road cycling or track cycling. I was never a big sport fan anyway. So now if I am tuning in, it's into something that I'm very highly invested in. Mm-hmm. That's not to say though that when I went to the European Games was actually great, because it put all of the Irish athletes from all different sports in together. So I was able to talk to, like, some of the, athletics people, and there were a whole load of different sports there actually, and it was just interesting to see, like, everybody kind of had the same perspective and, like, same experiences, even though we're all playing different sports. I should tune into other sports, but yeah, I suppose it's like not, I don't know, it's probably not aired too. I don't see much women's sport. I mean, maybe that's what we're getting at. It's like, it's not.
Well, no, I wasn't, but like that's,
it's like, that's not on. Like,
that's what we're trying to change, is that you actually can watch.
And I mean, to be fair, like, for me to even tune into cycling, like, I need to go and, like, find some obscure website that's streaming it. Yeah, so like, like, I think I would be totally open to watching all types of sports, but if it was there. One thing I did watch recently, but only because it was like a Netflix series, was the CrossFit Games. It was following a bunch of women doing that, and, like, I found that very interesting.
How do you kind of find the gender balance? So obviously you're saying there's a huge, more men participating in cycling. And do you train with guys as well, or do you primarily train with girls?
I would have trained with the guys at the velodrome, but no, like, a lot of our efforts would have been done just as a team, the women's team for the team pursuit, or then you do, like, individual efforts. Although, like, Madison would do a lot of their efforts, like, behind the motorbike, and that would have the men's team and the women's team behind the motorbike as well. So yeah, like, we would train with them, but kind of everyone's doing their own individual efforts, I guess. In saying that, let me see, when I started on the road, because sometimes there weren't enough women that would show up at a race, so they'd end up putting the women into the men's race, which, like, it's completely different. Then it's just, you're kind of sitting in the men's bunch and getting dragged around, and just kind of, like, depending on where you finished in the bunch, it's not a race against women. Like, you can't really race against the women. Mm-hmm. It's a good workout, but it's not a women's race. It's like, so, like, training with men though, if you wanted to be, like, international standard road rider, and even on the track, training with men will make you stronger for sure. Like I'd love to train with some like we don't have many sprinters in Ireland, but like any of the male sprinters, I would get a lot out of training with them because they're just a lot faster than me, obviously. And like I went over to Derby recently to train with Blackline Coaching, and they had like a sprint tactics weekend, and I was in a group of all men. They were all a similar, basically we all did a 200 and they were a similar speed to me, so I would have been racing against all men in that scenario. So yeah, it's good. I think it's good to train with men because a lot of the times they can be more powerful and more stronger, so they make you more powerful and more strong as well. So that's not always the case. I will absolutely destroy my dad in a sprint.